Hey, everyone. It's Isaiah, and I'm not alone this morning. Well, it's my morning. Welcome to live panel number 2, which is at kind of rude o'clock for me because I'm not an early morning person, but some people are even earlier than me, other and very much late. Welcome. So, this is live panel number 2 for OTALOCO. I'm just checking the tech. Just give me a minute, ladies, before we start talking. There we are. We are live. Awesome. So, with us, we have, and can you wait, please, when I call your name so that people know who you are? So, we have Jackie Kemp. Hey, Jackie.
Hi.
Katie K. Hey, Katie.
Hello.
We have Jill Chesrow. Hey there. And Pia Becker. Welcome. And
Hi.
we might be joined later by some more speakers because, as I was saying, for Europe, it's kind of early. So the amazing Jackie got up very early. And at the other end of the spectrum, the amazing Jill stood up very late. So here we are for a live panel, which is all about. Oops, there's somebody else coming. Yeah, here comes Nikki. Hey, Nikki. This is Nikki
Hello.
Cornfield arriving from Australia. So for her, it's not rude o'clock, hopefully.
No.
I'm going to take the captions off because then our heads become bigger and it's more interesting. So, welcome to this live panel of OTALOCO. First, I want to say something to the attendees. So, welcome. We are so excited to have you here. If you've not watched day 1, go and watch the replays. You have 7 days of free replays. And that's very important for me that you don't feel rushed into watching the amazing talks of our not less than amazing. Do you say that in English? Our extraordinary teachers and speakers. And yesterday we had revelations, we had fun, we had business advice, we had card pulls, live readings, we had so many talks from illustration, empowerment through illustration. We've had Nick Kellett presenting Deckible. We had so much fun. And if you missed it, it's still time to go and watch the replays. Now, today we have even more fun because there's even more speakers. So that means adding up to your replay list, I know, but that's how we roll in OTALOCO. We hope to overwhelm you with greatness and fun, basically. So this live panel, as the previous one, has no plan, no prepared plan. So we are... Oh, KDK, you've got people waiting for you already in the comments. I'm very interested in the wisdom KDK has to import today.
That's lovely. I've been letting everyone know.
So yeah, and so I have no plan, but there's a bunch of us. We have decks, so we're never left alone. So for the speakers who were already there yesterday, I think it was just Jackie. We might be repeating ourselves, but we know that's all right. So my first question to all of you is, what was your first deck? Do you remember that? Do you remember the first deck that you got into, bought, were gifted, or something of the sort? So just, randomly decide it's your turn to talk, and that'll do it.
So mine was an Egyptian deck. I was at art college, expanding out on all things mystical. And I was in the bookshop in London, Watkins, one of my favorite places. And I bought an Egyptian deck. I don't know what happened to it over the years, but it was an amazing deck. Very, very bizarre, very weird. But I incorporated it in a lot of my artwork as well. So that was my very first deck I ever got.
And do you still have it?
You know what? I don't know where over the years. I don't know where it went, but I've never seen it again. I haven't even seen it in Watkins. So it was just I've looked for it, can't find it at all. But it was just again, it was at that time I was looking at everything in the world, different cultures, incorporating my artwork. But it was it was really special.
I'm guessing this deck just showed up just for you. Now it has vanished into the
the
ether.
ether.
I love that. The deck that just shows up in the shop for me and then vanishes.
It's gone.
Very Harry Potter like.
Yeah, so that was my first deck, and I had a break from the healing world, and then I had a transition where I went back to it. So again, suddenly I've started collecting decks. So about 9 years ago, I came to a crossroads in my life, and it was all about doing healing work, tarot, and that's when my deck started to grow.
Now we're going to talk numbers in a minute, but don't spoil anything.
No.
So, Katie, do you remember your first deck?
I do, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was, I had a Rider-Waite Tarot, and I had the Doreen Virtue Fairy deck. And way back, I sort of wasn't a big fairy person. I'd meet people and they'd say, yeah, the fairies talk to me. They're in my garden. They're all around. And I'm going, it's not happening for me. But I got this fairy deck, and this deck spoke to me. And I do believe that Doreen's early decks were very powerful. They had a lot in them. And it was only years later, when there was all this mass production, they just didn't seem to have the energy. And possibly it was because she was going out of it. I don't know, but I loved that fairy deck. And then the tarot, it had pictures in it. It had to have pictures. I couldn't do the Thoth version because just seeing 6 sticks did nothing for me. I needed to go into the image with my clairvoyance. And but then since then, I've had so many decks. I'm really an addict until I got to the stage where
we've got you.
Yeah, where
we've got you.
Thank you. I'm an addict until I got to the stage where I really felt that I had to combine too many decks to get what I wanted out of them. And that's when I made my own.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Thank you. Jill, do you remember your first deck?
I do. It was a Doreen Virtue deck. I think it was her Archangel one. So I started waking up in 2006, and that was definitely, I cut my teeth on Doreen decks.
Awesome. Pia, do you remember yours?
Yes, my first deck, it's called the Muse deck. I can't remember from whom it was. But yeah, it's inspired by me, all the muses and so on. And yeah, I just decided because it looked beautiful, and so I just went into the store, saw all the tarots and all the decks there, and I thought, okay, that looks beautiful, let's start with that one. Unfortunately, they are always wrapped in that plastic foil stuff, so you can't really rip it off and actually look at the single cards and if they do something with you or something. So too bad, but I got it, and it's not the most ideal version of a tarot for beginners, so it was a little bit but yeah, so nowadays I'm a little bit more experienced, and now it works for me as well. But at the very beginning it was not the most beginners friendly decision to take that one, but it's a nice one.
So I'm going to interrupt this tour. Sorry, Nikki, I'll get back to you in a minute, because I want to remind anyone listening that in Deckible, as from the new version coming on December the 15th, so Deckible is our sponsor. They have this amazing app with digital decks, and in Deckible you can now you will be able, as from December 15th, to trial test every deck for free for 3 days, which means you can wrap up the thing and have a look. Is that a deck for me or not? Which I think is amazing, because I agree with you that sometimes I've been so disappointed. Once I'm not going to quote any names because I don't like to say bad things, but I supported a deck on Kickstarter, a tarot deck. And obviously it wasn't created when I supported it, like Kickstarter, that's the principle, right? So I just had 3 cards to go by, and they were all major arcanas. And I thought, this is beautiful, I want that. And then when the deck arrived, the major arcanas were beautiful, and all the other cards were just like you were mentioning, Katie, with sticks. And I was like, so disappointed. I can't do anything. It doesn't do anything for me. So yeah, I love the idea that in Deckible, we can trial test the decks and play with them. And then if you really, really like the deck, you can buy it on Deckible, and then you can go and buy the physical one as well. That's the amazing part. Thank you, Pia. So Nikki, do you remember your first deck?
I do, because it was the person who was presenting tarot, Radley Valentine, that appealed to me. So his sense of humor and his flamboyancy really resonated with me. So that was the only reason I bought his Angel Tarot deck. And also because although I've been to tarot readers who use the original Rider Waite deck, when I actually purchased one, I kept looking at it and it felt like a stone to me. I opened it, I tried to take the cards out, and I thought, at the moment, I can't work with this. It felt too heavy, too dense, a little bit old style. So I've just stuck with Radley Valentine's deck as my first one, but also my Indian Tarot, which is just the major arcana, which I got this year actually in India. And it just was like this beacon of light in this shop in India, and I knew I had to buy it. And I thought, well, why hasn't it got all the other cards in? Why has it just got these few major arcana? How do you say it? You know? But it doesn't seem to matter, because I just seem to have a powerful energy that I can just work with them. And actually, less is more for me with cards. So I'm not trying to put lots of decks together, but I know that works for some people. So at the moment, I haven't got a massive collection. I have 3, and
okay, that leads us to the next thing. You have 3. I think
yes.
For now you are winning the least deck contest. I think Cindy was trying to earn the award yesterday with 5, I think. So we'll tell her that she's lost now to you. Now the other end of the spectrum, ladies. Do we have? Who's doing this noise? Sorry, there's a Hoover noise somewhere, or kind of. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's not in my house.
It sounds like a sander or a power tool.
It does.
Jill, did you mute yourself? Can you wave your hand? That was you then. Impressive sound. So when you want to talk, just unmute yourself, please, Jill. Feel free to absolutely unmute yourself. Possibly when the noise has stopped, but even if this noise has not stopped, we want to hear from you. Air conditioning or something of the sort, maybe. Sorry. So yeah, Nikki, that brings us to the other end of the spectrum. So numbers, ladies, let's go. Let's confess. Who's got more than 10?
So I have
both together.
49.
Tarot and Oracle.
49, Jackie.
Yeah.
Pia.
I'm not sure. Probably more than 40 for sure.
Awesome.
But exact numbers, I don't know.
Congratulations. Katie?
I could not tell you. I'm in denial. If I count them, then I'm going to know there's too many. And I actually said, because I only use my decks now. So I actually said to my husband, which delighted him, that I would start giving the other decks away. You know, if someone ordered a deck off me, I'll send a surprise deck off with them or something like that. And he was really excited because he wants to go minimalist. And he doesn't understand that psychics, you know, love their tools. They love their decks. They love all the crystals. I don't know if you all saw the crystal video I put up of my granddaughter, but she's in a crystal shop. She's 8 months old, and it looks like her first word is going to be wow. And she actually said wow in it 3 times. And for 8 months of age, she came forward and looked around to see what the crystals were, and there was all this citrine everywhere, and her mother was holding rose quartz. So I think genetically it's gone down, but I can't confess to how many I've got big cabinets full.
So I have a solution for you. Deckible.
Yes.
For all the adults,
yes.
We can have many decks and no room,
yes.
No husband complaining that there is no room on the shelves. And also we can travel with them, which I think is, you know, an amazing thing. But I confess myself that I do have physical decks and I love my physical decks. By the way, my first deck, because it seems like it's a day today is like that, was a Doreen Virtue deck as well. So, and Jill, can you tell us the numbers?
I think it's the dishwasher. 75 decks I have for sure, possibly more. And every time I'm like, okay, this one I don't use very often. I think I could release it. And then I'm like, no, I just can't. So I've got some issues, but that's okay. I love it.
I think we all have some issues. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here talking about decks. Somebody had a story yesterday about, I think it was Simone, about how the decks appeal to us or repel us. Do you have any kind of that story, like either buying a deck and then finding it completely, not for me, or the deck actually speaking to you, kind of an immediate relationship, abuse from a deck or something of the sort? Do you have any funny stories with decks? Or somebody gifting you a deck and it's like, oh, no, you got me wrong, this one.
I have.
Okay.
I've often bought decks and they're in plastic. You don't know what you're going to get. You open it up and you go, no, I can't work with this. It just doesn't talk to me. The images I can't relate to them. There may be something like that. It doesn't happen very often, but you very rarely see what the images are. So that's why I decided I'd have the decks on my website showing the images where you can play with them and see the images, so you knew what you were getting when you purchased. Because sometimes even a tarot will have the Thoth version where you've just got the 6 sticks or the 7 discs, and there's people that love that. I'm not knocking it. It's just not for me. But yeah, I have bought decks where they haven't spoken to me, but they've spoken to other people.
And that calls for. We had a little conversation yesterday with TONYA Melendez in the opening address about decolonizing spirituality, and she was mentioning how many decks when she was younger and trying to find a deck where she would feel represented, and she's brown colored, and she was saying there are no decks with people like me on them. And so it can be that, like, you feel that there's this is not for me, and I'm so happy, and so is she, that there are more and more decks that would represent various types of people, so that we don't feel ejected or rejected by a deck, like, oh, I don't exist in there, so forget about me. But that's one piece, the piece that you're mentioning. So the love or the attraction or the repelling aspect of a deck, just because it's not similar to our energy, I think is very powerful. And there are decks that are beautiful and still I'm not feeling it. It's like it's not it's nothing against the deck itself, it's just not connected to me, or I'm not connected to it. And I personally consider that decks are conduits or supports for communication with my inner self, or the inner self of the person I'm reading for. So that means if I can't communicate with the deck, there's nothing going on, right? I was watching my feed this morning very early, and there was a share by somebody who shared a card. Obviously, I'm a card addict myself. I have other people like that in my world. And the deck she was sharing from is definitely a death deck or something of the sort. Everybody's a skeleton in there. And so she shared a card. I don't remember which one it was. And she said, oh, this is the joyful. And I was like, no, it's a skeleton. It can't be joyful. It's like, nope, not for me. But she enjoys that, obviously, But for me, there's this skeleton there. And it immediately brings images of not sadness or, but I can't connect it to the joyful skeleton. It's like, okay, so that's me. Where was I? Was it going in the rounds and asking for? No, I was asking in general. Do you have a specific deck or a specific story to tell about it? Rejection deck. Simone was saying yesterday that she literally bought a deck, and the first card she pulled was a no. It said no on it. Okay.
So if anyone who doesn't know me, I'm a massive cat person. So I have my cat Pippi, and a friend gave me a cat deck. It must have been a very early deck because it felt French or Swiss. And when I opened it, I just could not resonate with it. So I'm still looking for the perfect cat deck. Still haven't found it. Might find it on Deckible. But again, as I said, when I opened it, the energy felt heavy. And it was a lovely thought for my friend to gift me this cat deck, but it just didn't resonate. So again, when I open a deck up, sometimes immediately I know it's not for me. So that was my one story. But I did buy Priestess of the Light because it had a tiger on the front. I went, oh, it's lovely. So I'm still waiting. I'm waiting for the perfect cat deck.
Okay, message out there. Anyone who wants to create a perfect cat deck just for Jackie,
she
will love it. I'm thinking, but I've seen a lot of dog decks, but I haven't seen a lot of cat decks that I connected to either. And I'm a cat person too. So
I think Radley Valentine does have one, or I'm sure it, but the cats don't resonate. I've looked at it. Yeah, but the cats aren't my kind of cats. I need tough tomboy cats. My boy is a big boy.
No wussy cats.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a message on my phone. I'm just checking that is no one left out from this panel. So do you have any other fun stories regarding meeting a deck, somebody gifting you a deck or anything of the sort? I know I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't prepare either of you with these, but you know.
I actually had a tarot deck that I really, really loved, and I'm not going to name it. And I was studying it, and I always used to say I studied tarot for more than 20 years and still didn't get it. But get it as in there's so much diversity that can happen within that deck. Anyway, I was walking in London past Watson's bookshop, and they have a reader that sits in the window. And there was the author of this tarot deck. And I thought, oh my God, I should get a reading from this person. It'd be so amazing. I would see the deck in action. And so I went in, purchased the reading, didn't realize you had to sit in the window with her, and went and sat in the window to have this reading. And what she did was, I didn't tell her that I had a deck. I never said a word. She asked if I had any questions, and I said she could go forward with it. And she just explained the cards. She couldn't do a reading. She just pulled the card out and said, well, this card says you're worried. Can you tell me what you're worried about? Do you know what I mean? Like this. Or this card says you've got to have some patience. So what are you trying to rush right now? And she just explained, as she pulled the cards out, what it could mean, and left it for me to work out what the interpretation was. So there was no flow, there was no flurry.
It's my laptop. Can I join on my iPad?
Absolutely.
And so I left disappointed, and I didn't look at the deck again, because I didn't even feel that the creator was connected to the deck. She couldn't do the reading from it. And I wasn't judging her. I just had high expectations of someone that would sit in a window in London, and readings would be sold, I suppose. And I'm a type A personality, so I'm very black and white as well. So I go for a reading and I want, I'm looking for answers, I'm looking for things. And but that deck, I picked it up the other day and it didn't talk to me anymore. It just stopped talking after that incident, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my sad story, but don't want to bring the mood down. But
that's all right.
I'm sure there's lots of people that can relate to that.
Yeah, there is. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to fix Jill here. Just a minute. So.
Well, I must admit, I used to have a bookshop, and I used to do author readings and book signings. And it was quite interesting. If I didn't like the author, I couldn't have the books in the shop. And my brother said to me, "You've got to stop doing author signings because you don't like many of them." And it really affected me how if I felt they weren't a particularly nice person or a good person, I just then wouldn't have the books in. So again, I really understand that, because if you haven't got that connection or kind of empathy with someone, then you don't want the books, you know. So yeah, no, I had to stop doing author signings.
I love that. But yeah, there's definitely energy from the deck itself. Of course, it does or does not connect with ourselves, right? Now, I don't know. Do you have any other stories, or shall we do some? What shall we do? Sorry, I'm trying to make sure that Jill can come back in my head. It's functioning at the back of my head.
Yeah.
So, Pia,
Do viewers have any questions that they want to
I'm
ask
going to
the
go and
panel,
check. That's a nice
or
question.
not?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good question. So not right now, but there is a slight delay between us talking and them seeing us. So let's go again. If anyone from the audience has questions for either of us or the whole group, please do so. Ask your questions in the comments and we will try and get there. Pia, you wanted to say something?
I would have a question for you.
Oh, great.
Which came into my mind yesterday evening, and it kind of bothers me. Does anyone has experience with Lenormand cards?
Lenormand.
Do you?
Lenormand.
Lenormand.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going for with my French accent here. Lenormand,
yes.
or Lenormand in real French. So, Katie, you raised your hand. Go on.
Yes,
Tell us about it.
I love it.
Yeah. So maybe just a silly question, but how is it? Does it count as a tarot, or is it more oracle, or is there a totally different category for those ones?
It seems to be in a category of its own, but it comes classed under oracle, because tarot is very defined, has to have the 76 cards, has to have the major and minor oracle and the court cards, whereas Lenormand, however you say it, doesn't have that strategy. It has its own, you know, you can't vary it.
Yeah.
Whereas with oracle, you can have anywhere from 20 to 80 cards or more. You choose how many you have, and people will generally select numbers that mean something to them. You know, I have 53 cards in each of my decks because 53 adds up to an 8. You'll find a lot of the Hay House decks have 44 cards. Whereas with the Lenormandie, I used to call it, they're numbered, and they each card has a number, and that number relates to the house or the key or whichever one it is. It doesn't change, only the image may change. And so it's like its own
like the
category.
tarot, but it's in its own category.
Yeah, because you can't call it a tarot because it doesn't have court cards and 76 cards and minor and major arcana. But it's very powerful once you learn how to use it. And I cut my teeth on the Gypsy Lenormandie cards, and I loved those ones. They were really, really good. And there was another deck out where you'd make patterns, and my sisters and I would all get there, and we'd get them and we'd turn them over and we'd go, oh, no, and we're worried about the next card that's going to come over, because my whole family, like my mother's was a psychic medium, and grandmother read teacups and people came to see. So we, you know, whenever I went there, they'd say, oh, you've got to do the cards, you've got to, you know, read for me. And so we'd have fun with it. And that was one of the decks we'd have fun with.
Does anyone, now I'm curious, do you have one that you can show us, Pia?
Not here.
Well, I'll have to Google that.
I'm just traveling at the moment, and I just have a very tiny collection of cards with me.
Very tiny, only 25. Just joking. Yeah, so thank you for this information, Katie. I had no clue about Lenormand although I can pronounce it, but
You
I
can
have not
say it.
played. I can say it, but I've not played with these cards ever. So, welcome back, Jill. So happy to have you back, and without the noise. If you want,
Sorry.
maybe you can turn this on this your iPad on the side so your head becomes bigger. If you want to, if it works. Yes, there you are.
Yeah.
If that's good for you, right? What was the question that Jill missed? I don't remember. We'll have to go forward. I'm going to go and check if we have any questions. No, not at the moment. So we have to make our own questions. So all of you are or have been familiar with the tarot, right? So I was going to ask a few questions around fun questions. So if we imagine that the major arcana of the tarot, they have day jobs, what would they do? So what would the Fool do as a day job? When he's not, or he or she, or they are not staying in their card, and they go outside the card, what do they do? Do they wait tables? Do they actually working in Wall Street, or kind of let's have some fun imagining what they could do.
So to me, I think the Fool will be a travel writer going around the whole world blogging and telling us adventures, getting us excited about life, what we're going to do, what possibilities there are. So to me, I see it as not just a man, an adventurous person.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Okay, I think we're going to stick with one day job for each card from each of you, because otherwise we'll never go past the Fool. We can go for hours. So then we have obviously the Magician. And don't tell me he or she or they are a magician. I'm not taking that. So what are they doing as a day job? Anyone?
I
He's
thought
teaching
they
the law
might
of
be a
attraction.
pharmacist.
Oops, sorry. Jill?
He's like Tony Robbins and teaching the law of attraction to everybody and how to manifest in the physical world.
That's a cool one. Yeah,
Nice.
that's a cool one. I love that. Katie, you had an alternative profession?
Yeah, I thought a pharmacist that's creating potions and healing people with them, and helping to guide them in the direction that they want to go. We're looking at the modern world.
Depending on which kind of magician it is. Maybe depending on the deck, they have different jobs.
Yes.
Let's go for the High Priestess. Ladies, what they do, the High Priestesses, they do what we do.
I was going to say that's me.
I was going to say that's me too. Yesterday we had Simone during the live panel, and she actually drew the card that she pulled. She drew and colored the card while we were in the panel, and her card that she had drew for herself in the morning was the High Priestess. So she literally created in front of our very eyes the High Priestess that we were all around her. And Nick was there, kind of a little disappointed not to be figured, but yeah, that would make sense that she would be a coach or something. The Empress. We're not going to do them all, rest assured. We're just doing a few for the fun.
I didn't want to monopolize it, so I'm just sitting back.
So to me, the Empress would be a nurturing person, helping, guiding, spreading the love out into the world. So maybe a teacher or a speaker, but spreading information to help people progress in their lives.
I was going for a nanny, actually.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, awesome. Sorry, the Emperor then. Let's kind of balance the thing out.
Share trader.
Yeah. Financial advisor.
Yeah, bank manager.
Someone in authority.
Okay, we got you, ladies. Well, thank you. That's a fun game. We can play for a long time here, but maybe we don't want to bore the audience with this fun game. But I invite you as an attendee or you ladies to play with the cards and give yourself the right to actually do things like that and imagine, and get out of the square frame of the deck itself, and go to allow your imagination to increase the presence of this or that card, and find them a soundtrack, different costume, different profession. What if they were a fairy? What kind of fairy would they be? What if they were an angel, even though this is not an angel deck? So you please give yourself permission, because we were discussing that yesterday, and I want to insist again. The cards bring with them, whatever cards, the playfulness, because they are cards. So we find this inner child in us that wants to play with them. We never say, I'm working with the cards. We say, I'm going to play with them. And sometimes we limit the play. And that's when it's a shame, basically. So please give yourself permission and find yourself little challenges like the one I just offered for, find more meanings in the cards by increasing the imagination and playing with those. I also, because I do that every day now, I'm going to say that buy the decks. You're an addict. Good for you. We're encouraging you to buy the decks. The artists and the creators of the deck need support. So that means buy the decks from anywhere you want. You can buy them online, from the artist directly if possible. You can also buy them from Deckible. You can also buy them from your local bookstore. They also need your support. There are so many ways that you can show your love and appreciation to artists and deck creators. And I invite you to do so outside of just buying it on Amazon, because this is the place where the creators and authors will get the least money. So, we have a power of a vote almost with our wallets. Please use that wisely and support the things that you want to see grow in the world. And that leads me to, I would like the two amazing speakers who are here today and that have their own decks to tell us a little more about their decks. So I don't know, Jill or Katie, who wants to start, but you've been creating amazing decks in a very different fashion. So I'm really interested for each of you to tell us a little bit how they came to exist. And so we can compare the creative process. I love that.
Katie, would you like to go first or me?
You can go first, Jill.
So this month actually is the 10-year anniversary of our first deck, which is a collaborative deck called Awakening to Your Divine Self. And there were 38 or 39 total artists. In the way that deck came to be was, and there's like a story behind the story, but art started to suddenly just speak to me. So my artist archetype was waking up and art started to talk to me. So I ended up in this Facebook group with these, and I was so new to art and just online world in general. And I was in this group of intuitive painters, and the work that they put out touched my soul on such a deep level. And the love and the wisdom that these women shared with people was just amazing. And I knew that, so intuitively I knew, but I felt it viscerally in my body that their work needed to get out into the world more. So, I prayed on it, and my guides kind of just showed me this amazing opportunity for these women to come together and to create this oracle card deck with their wisdom. So each artist created their own image and brought through their own message for this deck, and it was awakening to your divine self, wisdom and love from your fearless sisters. It was fearless painting class that the group that we all met in. So we did that with the first deck. And then, so even though I was like the director and initiator of this deck, we all collectively own this deck. Every artist maintained their image and, their copyrights to it. But we're all authorized distributors of these decks. We could teach our own workshops and stuff. So it was like win for, the people that we served, win for the universe to get this amazing energy out into the world, win for the artists for sharing their work in the world. And then 5 years later, we did Priestesses of the New Earth. So some of the same artists, and then some new ones did the second deck. So
That's
yeah, very
amazing.
cool.
That's really amazing. Do you by any chance have one of the other deck around you that you can show us?
I do. I have both of them, except that I don't know how to hold my iPad.
Oh, can you put it?
Excuse me.
Awesome. Thank
So
you. You will see a better
Priestesses of
picture
the New Earth.
though. For the attendees, you will see a better picture of that in the deck shop, where you can also be sent to a place where you can actually buy the deck. So in our deck shop,
And they're on Deckible.
oh yeah, that's what I was going to
Thanks
say.
to
And the
Nick.
new thing is that they are now on Deckible, which is woohoo! So you can have them in your pocket in 5 minutes, basically. But yeah, I love the collaborative deck. When I stumbled upon your deck, actually, I don't think I told you that. I found your deck like something like 5 years ago, the first one, and it was like, oh, this is so I can do this. If she could do this with that many artists, maybe I could do that as well. And it's interesting to have both you and Katie in the same panel, because more than 5 years ago, when I met Katie through a collective mentor, a shared mentor that I have, she gave me permission without even knowing that I could create a deck. It was like, oh, she looked like a normal person. She did a deck. She's not published by Hay House or some big name, and she has a deck. If she has one, maybe I can too. And then a few months later, I literally stumbled upon your deck, and I thought, ooh, and I could even do a deck with other people. And it kind of opened up so many things. So I'm so happy to have you both in OTALOCO and in the same panel. You're kind of, my permission givers. So thank you. Thank you. I'm very honored. And do go and check the decks of Jill and her amazing sisters in the deck shop. And you will also find them in our Deckible shop, because now they are on Deckible. I'm excited. Thank you for sharing the story of it, Jill. Katie, do you want to tell us the story about your deck?
Yes, I would love to. I've been a reader for many, many years, and I channel, and so the information comes through when I do the reading. And when I started reading professionally with my own office, because my husband didn't want people coming to the house, because we'd found that when we allowed that, they'd turn up at 2 a.m. if they were having a crisis. And so, I shifted into a little office and set up, and I would do the channel readings, and I'd have the tarot and some decks on the side, but maybe I would use them towards the end of the reading, but it just wasn't working. So what I'd do was I'd start making up these little cards. They're like little white, the size of a business card, and they're plain white, got them online, and I would write down messages that I was channeling onto them, and then they were growing. And I meditated, and they said there had to be 53. And I was adding these cards into the decks that I thought were lacking these messages. And then I got more.
Completing the decks. I love it.
Yeah. So and I was blending decks together. I was doing everything, but still there was missing elements that needed to go in. And in my readings, I basically used them at the end of the reading to confirm everything I said. Or if someone's asking a question, and so I started doing these, and I remember going on a trip to Thailand with my sister Jules, and I had these little white cards, and she'd say, get the deck out, get it out, and I'd get it out, and she'd ask questions, and I'd put them out, and she says, you have to do images, don't you? And I said, yeah, I know, I'm working on that, I'm waiting for them to come through. And we had a tour bus stop us off at the Big Buddha at Phuket. It's an enormous big Buddha. And I went there to get a blessing from the monks. And I went in there, and I had the blessing, and I just asked for the images to be provided. And as I was walking away, I started seeing the images. that had to come. So I'm pulling the cards out and I'm walking along and falling further behind, writing down what these images had to be on these little cards that had, 3 words on or 3 little sentences. And Jules goes, hurry up, you're going to get left behind. I said, I can't. I'm getting all the images now. They're being downloaded through. And that week we were there, I would take time to just sit and the images would just pop into my head. And I end up writing them all on these cards. And then I thought, well, I need to be able to do the art, but I'm not an artist. So I took an art class and I did 6 months and I thought, people haven't got 25 years to wait for me to get good at this. We can't use what I do. So I went to hire a graphic artist and someone's recommended this lady who was very good. And so I contacted her and she lived in Melbourne, which is like 2 plane flights, takes quite a few hours to get there. And my husband was very supportive and he said, we'll book accommodation, we'll go and meet with this lady, you can tell her what your vision is, show her what you have and see what she can do. And I'd asked her for a quote and the quote came in and it was $50,000. And my husband said, for 53 cards, she wants $50,000. And I said, yeah, and I'm not mortgaging the house because there's not even $50,000 in the mortgage. Do you know what I mean? So I had to decline and I said, look, I'm very sorry to have misled you, but I can't afford $50,000. And I know we're not meant to say that in the manifesting world, but let's be real, where was I going to get $50,000 from? And so we still went to Melbourne. It was all paid for and everything. I was a little bit dejected, came back. And one of my students, I was telling her the story and she said, oh, well, I've just done a book, a legacy book. And this woman did the cover for me and it was really good. Why don't you give her a try? And so I did, and she was wonderful. And it was almost, even though she wasn't spiritual, she connected to me. And no matter what I said, she could come up with what I asked for. And if she couldn't find that, she'd find something else. And it was quite interesting because sometimes she would throw something else at me and I would meditate on it and come back. And one of the cards that was, I was a little bit stumped on was the card that said you were safe. And I was trying to get images and an image popped in because I'm a dog lover and I love cats too, but we mainly have dogs. We only have dogs. And this image came up in my head of a dog in a kennel and it was chained up to the kennel. And it didn't sit right. And the next morning when I woke up, I had the iPad and I'm looking through the news and here was the headline that a dog had been eaten by a python because it was tied up and sitting in its kennel. And that was the end of that image. And I contacted her and I said, no, this is not safe. This is not how it can be. How do you portray you are safe? And we had the safe harbour. We had all those sorts of things. I then visited a sanctuary and I saw the koalas and the baby and how safe they were. And I thought, well, that gives it an Australian flavour as well. So I went with that. So this lady helped me put the deck together and I'd spent 5 years building it, getting the images, getting the words, and I tested it for 3 years on my clients to make sure it was accurate before I put it out there. I was not just going to put out a deck that sat on someone's coffee table. I wanted a working deck that working psychics were going to use, that any psychics, that beginners could use, that yes, there's a little book, but you don't have to use the book because the image would talk to you. So that's why the images were so important, because I also teach my students how to develop clairvoyantly by going into the images. And there's nothing safer than that when I look at it. And so, yes, unfortunate things happen. I mean, to our own families, unfortunate things can happen. But that was how we got the first one done. And then I thought, well, how do I get these printed? And then it was going to cost so much per deck, like $90 a deck if I was to get them done in Australia. And I thought, no one's going to pay that. And I still have to pay the graphic artist and all the rest. So I ended up going to China and I got them done, but it was quite expensive. And the other thing I was particular about is I wanted a magnetic flat box, because I'd seen how people, you know, the boxes fall apart, they get tattered, they're trying to pull the clamshell apart, they're trying to pull them out, and I wanted things to be easy. So then that costs more, because magnets are dearer, but they're little. And then I wanted a deck that would fit in your hand, because the majority of people, without being discriminatory, don't have bricklayers' hands to manage the big cards. And if there's 53 of them, you need, you know, it's better if they're smaller so you can actually hold the deck. And so I went with the smaller deck, and then they had to make the size, because it wasn't a standard size. And so got all that done, got it over, launched it, and I sold personally, without any advertising or anything, 1,000 decks within the first, I think it was 18 months. And I was quite proud of myself, because that's a lot of decks. When they
That is a lot of decks, yeah.
My husband was like, what are we going to do with these? Where are you going to put them? What if they don't sell? But people loved them. They took off, and we sold them. And then it was like, well, now I've got to buy another lot from China, and this is really big, and how am I going to get them across? And anyway, it was easier the second time. And then the thing came was, I do a lot of expos where I do stage presentations, and I talk, and I do readings. But someone would come along and I'd say, oh, choose a card, and they might get something like this. And if it was a child, it was just a bit too confronting. So I call this my masculine deck, because it's very black and white. It's very direct, goes straight to them. And so then I started working on a second deck, and I wanted a theme for it. And essential oils were just going off at that stage. Everyone was going with them. And essential oils, the energy of them is just beautiful. And so I gave the second deck, which came out in 2019, 4 years later, I called it the Modern Oracle of Essential Oils. And the reason I called it a modern oracle is, with the first deck, I had all modern images. It doesn't appeal to everyone, but I wanted to deal with everyday problems. You know, not many people have a problem with their dragon anymore. And I've got nothing against dragon decks or anything like that, but I had people coming to me that would look at a dragon card and go, well, what does that mean? Is that my husband? And I'd go, no, you know, that's fine. So I wanted, you know, you to be able to see that is someone that's really worried, that it's raining on them, that they've got a cloud over their head, that they're being struck by something that's getting, you know, they've got a headache maybe. And be worried about time if you're drawn to the watch, and teach people how to go into the image and see by looking at the image. And that was the easiest way to do that. You know, if you were looking at this image, you might notice that the time's on a slant. Is it leaning backwards or forwards to you, depending on, you know, which way you're looking at it? Did you notice that the top part, that the sand is a lot darker color than the bottom part? And that sand represents time. Got that idea from that. There's a show on TV, the Sands of Time or something, but people refer to sand as time. And so symbolically, sand is time. And so this card more or less says, well, you know, you're waiting on something. You're going to have patience. You can't rush an hourglass. If you turn it upside down, you're starting all over again. But there's a hell of a lot of sand all around there. So when that goes through, you still got all that other sand there that says it's going to take even more time. But you might be drawn to the cloudless sky that says, well, things will be okay. So looking at these images and finding new meanings for them. So when this deck came along, I went and I had to find all the pictures of the source of the oil. And I'd been criticized with my first deck because there was no numbers on it. People wanted numbers on it. And I thought, well, that was a bit of a slight, but not every deck, you know, encompasses numerology. So with the essential oil deck, which the cover looks like that one, I numbered the cards, and there was 53 of them. And there was so many oils out there. what I did was I interviewed all these people and I said, what's your favorite oil? What's your most used oil? So that when they use this deck, they could say, what oil would benefit me right now? What essential oil? And right now, patchouli would benefit me. If I was to say which essential oil would benefit Asaya the best now, grapefruit would be one that you would go for right now. Okay. So there was that. And if I
can you do us all while you at
I
it?
can.
Thank you. I love
which
that.
essential oil would benefit Pia the most right now? And turmeric would benefit Pia. And so turmeric also, you know, is very much, when you go into the book, you will see that it's an anti-inflammatory. And so I would say in the little book, which then cost me more because I decided to go to colour, and I put them in alphabetical order. I go to turmeric, and it says, well, it's an antidepressant, it's anti-inflammatory, it's antimicrobial, it's antioxidant, it's antiseptic. It promotes cellular health, supports cardiovascular health, supports metabolic function. So I couldn't say it would help with speed your metabolism up. I couldn't say that it was good for your heart. I couldn't say any of those because they're making health claims. So I used dictionary terms. And then I put the meanings of those terms at the beginning of the book. So you could then look up what that meant, and that would tell you exactly what it did. Look, I couldn't say eucalyptus repels rats because you're not allowed to make claims. But I'm fascinated by what all the oils could do. So turmeric for you. So I've done Asaya and I've done Pia. And so Nikki, for you, it's rosemary. And for Jackie, correct, Jackie? Yeah. Bergamot. Now, bergamot, we all know, is good for cholesterol, but bergamot has many other benefits as well. When you go into the book, you'll see that. And these decks are on Deckible, so you can see all this. If I go to Jill, I haven't done, cypress is the essential oil that you would use. And if I go to Nikki.
Oh, you've been there already, I think. It was
been there. So who haven't I done?
I think you've done everyone, but yourself. Oh, you did yourself first, didn't you?
Yeah. So that was one of the functions of that. But the other function would be the image. So this one is saying, look, I think you need to get all your ducks in a row. Things aren't lining up, or you need to line them up. Maybe you're being too rigid. What are you reaching for? The other thing is, so if I go for a sire, I want a message. And I'll pull a card. And you would not believe this, but I got grapefruit again. You saw me shuffle those 53 cards. And this is how this works, these decks. And it says, focus on eating a more balanced and nutritional diet. Look for foods that nourish and nurture your body for optimum health. See that?
I love that.
There is your message. Up the top, there's also the words that you can line up with the words in these cards in the first deck, because within the first deck, there is a card to match every card in the second deck.
I love that. It's like a sequel for a movie.
Yeah.
We have,
you can use the two cards.
I love that.
Yeah. You can use the two decks together. And when you do that with 53 cards, and you're pulling, say, 3 from each one, and if I got the other grapefruit card in the other deck, that would be the universe really emphasizing to you, this is really, really important.
This is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And so these words up here are saying you need to detox, you need to work on nourishing your body and body acceptance. Now, down the bottom, there's an affirmation. So you can just ask for an affirmation. Your affirmation is, I only eat foods that nourish and nurture my body to improve my health. And then down the bottom where the number is, number 21, which is a 3. And for those that didn't know numerology, I put in the little book on page 14 the meanings of the numbers, but I just didn't do the standard numbers. Like 3 is about creating and joy and celebration and communication. But I love the law of attraction. So the number 3 is chase your dreams.
Ooh,
See that? So that would be your message from that card.
Awesome.
Chase
That's
your
a beautiful.
dreams.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's so intricate. There's so much
Yeah.
in there. Thank you so much for
There's the
sharing the
chakra
story.
colors as well. So I can say which chakra does Asaya need to focus on at the moment that is out of balance. And I pull it out and it says your heart chakra because it's the green card.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 6 ways that you can do a reading with these and get
I love that.
things
I
out.
love that they have so many hidden messages in the message. And
Yeah,
thanks
but you
for
can join all
explaining.
the messages up to get the
Yeah.
answer to a question, which I'm happy to show you as well if you wanted me to. So there's different ways, but also because there was more than 53 oils in existence, and I didn't want to offend anyone by not putting their favorite oil in, I did what I call a wild card. And the wild card you use as a surrogate for any oil that you have that's not in the deck. So that if it was a blended like balance or something that's not in the deck, you could say today this card represents that oil, then go and say which oil do I need, and if this card came up, that's what it is. It too has a message, it has an affirmation, a number, and it has the words. With my first deck, the little quirk I added was a blessing and prayer of intention card, because a lot of my students didn't know how to set the intention to connect really quick or how to connect. And this is a connection prayer, whether you're using the tarot, whether you're using a crystal ball, a pendulum, any tool at all, or any reading. I just start with this prayer, and that is enough. I've set the intention, I've said what I want, clear and accurate messages, the whole lot. But then this card stays in the deck because when it comes out, it says whatever you're asking, the situation is blessed. Not only that, if I was to say, Nikki, can I ask about you? Is that all right? No? Okay.
No, I think she said yes.
Yes?
Yeah,
okay.
I did.
So
I
if I
was
said, okay, what does Nikki need to know about her spiritual path right now? And if that card come up, that's the card of the channel. But it's also the blessing card. It says that you're blessed. So if I said, what does Nikki need to know about her spiritual path right now? And I was going to pull a card and then another one and another one. It says, you have to be more patient with yourself right now. It's not something you can rush, and there's more time to be taken, but you will be studying more, and you will be, you need to make it your focus right now and confront your fears and take charge of your spiritual journey for you to be moving forward at a quicker pace. Does that make sense, Nikki?
Yeah, seems to
Yes.
have frozen my screen, but I can hear you. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Okay. So if I then ask that for Pia,
Can I
is that
just
okay,
interrupt
Pia?
for just 1 minute?
Yes.
To tell the attendees that if they want that for themselves, you are doing
Yes.
live readings in a couple of hours. Just want to
I
remind everyone that, you know, you can come and have KDK do a reading just for you in a
Yes.
couple of hours. And
Yes.
just to let everyone know also that this might be your kind of only opportunity, because KDK is booked solid up until what, next year or something. So if you do want a reading with KDK, in live reading, one of your only opportunities is to turn up in a couple of hours and come and have your reading done. But
And I do them once a month online as well. But also I run my calendar. I don't book all 7 days, because if I get COVID, which happens when I go and do an expo or something, I get a cold or flu, I need to be able to move people around if need be. And then when I get closer to the time, we have a waiting list, and I say to my PA, I'll work next week these 2 days because my daughter doesn't need me or I don't have to be anywhere. And then we open those days up, ring everyone on the waiting list, and then we put up on the calendar. So that's the other way that it works, because you know yourself, all being working psychics, you can't book every single day because you just burn out. It's like leaving the gas on and the gas runs out. So, but anyway, enough about the Monarchical. I'm sure you all got the gist of it. I'll go on forever reading for everyone.
Thank you very. We might come to that, but I just wanted to remind the attendees that they get their turn as well. Also, I wanted to tell Jill that she got a comment about her story earlier on. And somebody said, Mitra said that it's a beautiful story for the deck creation.
Yeah.
So I wanted you to know. And yeah, thank you, Katie. It's amazing to see, to hear you describe the process. Sorry, I'm going to take you off focus for a minute. Describe the process of, you know, every detail that you thought about putting in there. It's like, because there's many of us who'd love to have decks and create decks and okay, let's do this. But then it's really a process of daring to leave it at rest until it's complete, and then the colors and then the numbers and you know. And I'm going to tell you a funny story. I have my little deck, which I created this spring, and it's just the beginning. I wanted an easy, fast deck for me to reassure me that it existed. And it's obviously working with my whole system of living a goddess life and my 8 Greek goddesses archetypes, which, you know, is the whole of my professional life is encompassing those 8 archetypes. So I created the cards with, there's 8 goddesses, there's 9 cards for each goddess, and they have a message, and they have a little, a similar color for each goddess, so you can recognize. And it took me up until the last moment that it was going off to the printers to realize that I'd forgotten to put the actual little goddess image on them. And then only then at the end did I remember that I had to put this little goddess there. But it took me really, because I'm so in my own system, I didn't even realize that it was missing. So, and then I had to kind of add them rushingly. You know, I wrote to the printer, don't do it, just wait a sec. Sorry. It was like, I was so happy that I'd chosen to print them in France, the French printer that could actually, I could actually literally phone and stop the production. Although I had signed every paper saying, yes, I want them. I just realized, oops, you know, because they each have the color of the goddess. For me, that was enough. But then I realized for me, but not for the actual buyer of the deck. So you know, I wanted to compare your story of in depth, taking the time to have everything, and my story of rushing into it, which almost literally flunked completely the whole deck. So, but there was a sentiment of urgency. I wanted to have something physical that would show up in my world and say, okay, this is what you're doing. So I'm not regretting anything. And I caught the printer just in time. But I was really happy.
Your goddess is telling you?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, we're not in there. And since
did you remember to do all the goddesses, or is there any that you had to leave out or got left out?
No, I work with 8 Greek goddesses archetypes. So mainly, I mean, I connect with the divine feminine as a whole, but I work with 8 Greek goddesses archetypes, and each of them this is a goddess self-care deck. So it addresses a different area, I call them, or a sphere of self-care, because self-care is very often considered like, you know, mani-pedis and bubble baths. But I believe that self-care is also happening in relationships, in the way you treat your body, in the way you treat your emotions, and each of these goddesses kind of connects with the chakra system also. So the colors are not random, obviously. So you'd have, this is an Aphrodite card, for instance, and it's going to be red because it connects with the first chakra. And there you have the little Aphrodite. And these are actually, these little goddesses are actually, copyright-free little images that I found online. But there's only 6 of them. I needed 2 more because there's 2 that nobody created. The guy who created the other ones did not create the Gaia and Persephone. So what I did is I phoned my mom, who is a painter, and I said, could you do me a Persephone in the same style? And she did. Could you do me a
Oh,
Gaia?
lovely.
And she did. Let me show you. I don't have a Gaia card. There it is. No, there it is. So I asked, could you do me a Gaia style? And there she created the Gaia. And so
Lovely.
I ended up having my 8 ones. But I'm so in my system that I forgot to put them on, basically, up until the last minute. And since there is no booklet with the deck, because I wanted it to be simple and cheap to print, I decided to print in France. So that meant the printing itself was more expensive than it would have been in China or something. But I still wanted to do it in France for ease and efficiency. And thank God, because otherwise I would have flunked. So I knew that if I'd done a booklet, it would have been so much more expensive. So I just did a leaflet. And in the leaflet, there's all the little goddesses, obviously, but I'd forgotten to put them on the card. So it was like, okay. And it's really interesting how I think we go about in creating something like that, and how much I had to get out of my own head, basically, to realize that something was missing. And for my next deck, because yes, there is another one coming, I'll make sure to take some more time and give myself some more processing time. But that's going to happen. It has to happen because I'm doing the art on the next deck, which is way longer process, because I'm creating a piece of art that I want everything that needs to be on this card to be on the art. And so that's way more time consuming than just the little photo card that I did previously. Nonetheless, I'm excited about my deck, and it's also on Deckible. Guess what? So yeah, what I wanted to add is that creating your deck does not have to be for sale. You can create your deck just for yourself, just like people write their memoir for their family and friends. Even if you're not a reader professionally, you can create a deck for your own use, for your friends. And that means, and now with Deckible, you can even publish it. So, for free, basically. But I think it's important what you were saying, Katie, earlier on about I couldn't find what I was looking for in the decks that existed, even when mixing and matching decks. And I had to create my own. So if you feel like this, even if you don't want to sell it or become a professional reader, please give yourself permission and do a deck. There are actually so many ways to create a deck. Just a bunch of business cards, like this one, and you write something on the back, and you take 50 of those, and poof, you have a deck, right? And for a starter thing, if you have an idea, go and do it. I have an art prompts deck. So when I'm stuck in my art, I have a deck that I've created on popsicle sticks. And these are art prompts. So I just pull 2 and I get going then. So it's a deck, but it's a popsicle stick deck. And it's just for me. I have no intention of sharing it at any point. I did a tutorial on how to do it for yourself in one of my classes, but I'm not selling my own for now. So yeah, do the decks that you need to find in the world, basically, or that you want to use in the world, because why not? Because why not? Again, if you feel like playing with decks, create the decks. You've got this, because I love that your decks are called the Modern Oracle, or Awakening Your Divine Self, because it reminds us that the magic is in the reader more than the cards even. Mm-hmm. And that anyone can open up their channels and become a reader, even if it's only for you or for your family, friends. My next question, let me see if we have comments in just a minute. My next question would be, when did it become obvious that you were going to become a professional reader, that you were going to do this as I need to be doing that for a living, kind of? Or when did it become obvious that you had to add this into your whatever business was before?
I
letting
went
you
in
reflect.
dragging my heels because oftentimes my guides, the people that I work with, my universal support team, I like to call them, they will show me what they would, like me to do, or what my soul would do when I got here. Like, no, for various reasons. Who am I? I can't, somebody else is better than me. So oftentimes I won't. So I did drag my heels for a long time, and the messages just kept coming every possible way you could imagine. So I'm just like, okay, takes me a little while, but I'm like, okay. So it's been about 17 years since I've been reading.
Awesome. And so that is, if I'm not mistaken, just one of the things you do. Like, your business is not strictly reading; it's so many things.
It is a lot of things. So I do multimodality energy healing, with body code and motion code being one of the main modalities I use with most of my clients. And then in the last, I think since 2010, I've been channeling language of light, which I kind of kept on the down low, because even in the woo-woo community, that was a little too out there. So I would just do it with certain people. And then that also was something I dragged my heels on. And so now I do language of light a lot with my clients and in workshops.
Awesome. I love that. Oh, by the way, if Jill's talk has not gone on or live yet, but it's amazing because I've listened to it. So go and listen to that one too. It's really, I'm so happy that you agreed to come into OTALOCO, and that your work gets to be showcased. So thank you again.
Thank you.
So who else wants to talk about their daring to charge for reading? Because there's this thing, right? We do readings and we do them in the quiet of our own home. Then we start doing it for our friends. Then there's this big thing where you put a price on it. And that, for many of us, mostly women, will trigger the witch wound. And the idea that, if I'm going to be visible as a psychic, a reader, a witch, basically, I'm going to be hanged, or I'm going to be drowned, or I'm going to be persecuted. And for many of us, or at least I'm going to speak for myself, because I did the research and I found the ancestors that were actually hanged and tortured. And so it's no joke that, we have this in Europe very, very strongly in our lineage, at least. I'm not sure you don't have it elsewhere, but I'm sure we do have it in Europe. I actually went one day a few years back in Paris and visited an exhibition that was about the witch trials in France. And I found the name of that ancestor of mine and how she had been persecuted, etc. And, I know that she is real. So it's not even, fluffy generation things or DNA. It's real. And it's like, I know that in me runs this. If I get too visible doing things that are considered strange or weird or woo-woo, I might well be just like this Gertrude Born. Her name was Gertrude Born. Weirdly enough, my father's name was Born. So interesting. In English, it comes as interesting. But I know that I have this kind of very deep fear. So, and I know I'm not the only one. And the instant I put a price on something woo-woo, there's this thing that surfaces, and I have to remind myself with your koala card, Katie, that I am safe, that this is 2023. Nobody's going to come and hang me or burn me or drown me or persecute me for my being woo-woo. But I do have, I need the reminder. So does that ring a bell for any of you at the moment where you decided to charge?
Yeah, so for me, again, I've had in past lives where I've been burnt as a witch, hung, drawn and quartered. So for me, again, yeah, that does resonate. And I feel a lot of psychic ladies and psychic men have had this in their lives where they've been persecuted, and it is overcoming those beliefs as well. So I struggled for a long time because I'm a healer predominantly, but I do tarot as well. But the tarot is something I absolutely love, and I've been drawn to it all my life. So, but really my main journey was as a healer, but the tarot is becoming more and more prominent for me because I just really resonate with it and I love it. And I love how it helps people, and you can really help people see other angles for their lives and other pathways. They don't have to be stuck rigid in one pathway. So for me, I love it, but I do struggle with the pricing. That has always been an issue with me because, again, in a past life as a healer, I've done it for free, and the village would bring me food. So for me at the moment, it's still a struggle. So I don't know whether
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else feels concerned with this idea of becoming
when I came from the corporate world, and so I had to hide that I was doing it because the corporate world, it would have discredited me. They would have, it would have been, I would have not been taken seriously. And I was doing, high-powered corporate position, and this was on the side, but charging was hard at first. And I teach my students, until we value ourselves, it's very hard to put a value on what we give. But I say that my hairdresser does a great job for me. That's my opinion, but she can't do it for free. My doctor won't see me for free. There is no services out there that you can get for free, and the village is definitely not going to feed me, so I have to buy my food. And I teach my students, if you put a value on it, then you will accept your value, and others will as well. And I teach a value story about, if you've got a $5 pen and a $500 pen, the $500 pen stays in its case. The $5 one gets lent out, thrown around, bottom of the car, the whole lot. And we put value on something that we pay for. If you buy a $20 dress, you don't care if the color runs or if it shrinks or whatever. You do, but you know what I'm saying. But if you bought a $2,000 one, that thing's never going to be given away. It's whether it fits you or not, it's in the cupboard. And so you have to value yourself. And when I first started, my husband, more or less, it got to the stage around about before 2000 where all these people kept showing up in my life that needed help, and it would just come through. But if someone was to book a reading, I'd be going, oh, what if nothing happens? What if nothing comes through? Because there is nothing until you connect. It's because you don't know, like I don't look at someone and go, oh, I know all about you now, because I teach my students, you don't look unless you're asked to. It's not your business to.
Yeah.
And it's like going through someone's underwear drawer and finding things that you shouldn't find or whatever. You have to value privacy. But people would be drawn to me, and it was like I had a magnet that says, tell me your problems. I really, really want to know. And it didn't matter where I was, they would come to me and I'd sort their lives out. My husband would say to me, we're going out to dinner. I want you to check out this developer guy, but don't do that thing you do. And I'd go, what thing I do? He says, don't do any of that woo-woo stuff. And I'd say, I won't. I said, do you want me to look at him or not? And he goes, yeah. Well, we go out, and then his grandmother's there, the dead grandmother behind him, and I'm trying to feed the information into the conversation. And then all of a sudden I went too far, and he said, how do you know that? No one knows that. And then my husband got up and he says, I'm going to the bathroom. Stormed off. He was upset. And before he did, he said, oh, don't worry about her. She's a bit, and he went psycho like this, because that was his little in joke. Mm-hmm. And he says, don't worry about it. He says, no, it's all good. He says, I believe in this. And I figured his grandmother wouldn't be there really pushing and wanting all this stuff out if he didn't. Anyway, so my husband had also said, and don't make him cry as he left. He came back and the guy was bawling his eyes out, and he's this big burly guy, and he said, I told you not to make him cry. And I said, well, he goes, it's all right, this is prime. And he didn't even want to know about the development or anything. He just wanted to talk to his grandmother. And so then he sent people to me and other people, and it just kept coming. And so I said to Spirit, if you want me to do this, I want to go and get trained at the Arthur Findlay College. I don't know what I can do. I don't know if I can do more, but I want to be professional. I want to be trained and have confidence. And to do that, I have to save the money up for the trip. And, you know, it was a 36-hour transit trip over there and another 36 hours back. I had to be away from my young children and my husband and my corporate job. And so all of a sudden, all these people turned up out of nowhere that had heard about me that were wanting readings. And my husband didn't want them coming to the house. So I would go to their homes, which was very dangerous because you don't know what you're going to get when you get on the other side. And so that was something that couldn't go on. Went away to college, and that's another experience, another story. But when I came home, I then went, okay, I'm doing this. And I said that to my husband. And so I would work when I wasn't doing my corporate job. And he set up a little office for me in his office. But I got a little room, the smallest room in the whole building. And people would come in and it didn't look woo-woo. It looked like an office. And then they'd come in my room and I'd have some crystals and things around. And the other thing he'd said was he had an image. You were
literally in the closet then.
Yes, I was still in the closet, and it was a closet. But he was concerned that I would go flaky because he had an image in his mind of you know, people would come up to me and say, oh, your spirit guide is saying this, and it wasn't solicited, it wasn't asked for or anything like that, but he's not woo-woo, and he's looking from the outside in, and he's looking at the gypsy in the caravan and all the rest of it, and he's thinking, I'm going to start getting around with, you know, long flowing gowns and going to corporate dues in this, you know, dressed like that. So I had to find a balance, and I found that balance, and I started charging. And then, you know, our mentor that we had for a while, I wanted to teach everything that I learned at the Arthur Findlay College. Every night when everyone was out drinking, I was writing every single thing that I did that day down, every lesson, how I felt about it, how others reacted, you know, the pros and cons, the whole lot. And then I went back and I set up an academy and said, I'm going to teach this. And but I was charging, I think it was $50 for an hour with me for that, and then getting $100, I think it was, for a reading for an hour at that time. And our mutual mentor then said, an hour of your time is an hour. And if you are too cheap, people won't take you seriously. And I've seen that at expos. I've had someone beside me charging $10, and she'd sit there for however long you wanted doing it. And people were lined up, and then they'd come to me and pay $80 for 15 minutes because they didn't value what she gave them. And, you know, so valuing you is a big step.
Yeah.
But also the trust factor, and I teach that in my books, you know, learning to trust. Once you learn to trust, you can then learn to value you. Trusting that your people will turn up. You know, it was always, what if this is all in my head? And what if someone comes to me, because people fly, you know, they hop on flights and come to me for the day and then fly home, and they do that. So that's a lot of responsibility. What if they turn up and I get nothing? I'm not going to make things up, you know, and because you have nothing until they are in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
that is
so that's hard
that's the
to
weird
charge
part.
for something.
That's the weird part.
Yeah.
For me, I tested
Hard
that.
to charge for.
Sorry to interrupt. For me, I tested the what if I got nothing? Fear live on Facebook. I thought, if I can do a live on Facebook, pulling cards and not knowing anyone, basically, not even having the freaking person in front of me, just having a name and a picture, and I can see if something comes up. If nothing comes up, after a while, I will completely stop this thing. I will, this obviously is not for me. But trusting, now I trust it, because it's like I've done that in the worst possible conditions, and I know that something comes up and people turn out and say, whoa, I love that. This was really to the point. Sorry. But also it was both very, very scary and of no importance. Because I thought, this is social media, If I'm not good at this, my posts are going to disappear in the, they have a lifespan of roughly 15 minutes after a live is finished. I think it's 15 minutes, but it will still appear on anybody's wall. So I thought, I don't care. It's both really, really frightening and completely without consequences. So let me try this, and I'll see if I can then trust myself. And only after doing that was I able to go and say, okay, I'm going to charge this for this. But
well, my husband said, if you got nothing, then you just refund them. He said, he was very wise. He said, you're not going to connect to everyone. But I haven't had that incident yet. But the fun thing, the unusual thing about social media is that when I do a Facebook Live, which I do every month, it's up there forever.
Yeah.
And I say to people, don't treat this like the Jerry Springer show, because if you come on and ask a question and I answer it, it's going to be up there forever. So, and I'm very, I don't have a filter sometimes. If you come up and say, what about your work situation? I have to be careful, because I can't say, look, your boss sucks. He's been treating you wrong. He's been sexually harassing you, all the rest of it. The boss could be watching. And so you can't be as blunt as when they're in front of you and go, what on earth were you thinking? Why are you even with this guy?
Obviously. But it did happen to me.
What I do.
I've had some occurrences that I wanted to say things that I considered were not user-friendly on Facebook. And I actually wrote to the person after the live saying, I've had this come through, get this, because you need to hear this, but not the whole of Facebook does need to hear it.
No, so you have to keep it pretty wishy-washy in some way.
But for me, in a way, it was
so
really,
that they understand.
Yeah.
But it can seem like you're not getting to the point sometimes, because the point is more than others should know.
And I think what I do is I say, I'll message you after. Or if anyone's got questions when I do Facebook Lives, contact me directly, because it is an open forum, and you don't know who's watching. So again, there's that level. You have to keep it slightly on the lighter side. But if anything heavy comes up for you, I always say to people, reach out to me, and we can discuss what's come up that I'm not saying here.
Yeah.
So,
But that's a good thing.
But as a place to learn to trust yourself, it was amazing.
Yes.
Because
and you also have to.
Okay, if this works, then I can sit with a person face to face and tell her what comes and fully trust, and then I can charge.
Very brave, going social media first. Very brave. That's wonderful.
Actually, that's how I started, was doing it on social media. And I look back and go, oh my God, how did I do this?
Well,
and I still get nervous going on live.
There was no social media when I started, so
I was at the Arthur Findlay College in the 1980s. I spent a week at the Arthur Findlay College in 1982. Didn't really know why I was there, but just went. And I felt I was surrounded by very strange people. But it was a learning curve.
Well, to me, it was again this mutual mentor, Katie. So we're going to name her. It was Joanna Hunter, and she was saying to me, "You need to go live for not readings, but in general." And I thought, okay, let's try this thing. But I went there with both as I was saying, a huge fear and no expectations whatsoever. So that was helpful. And I'm not saying it's for everyone to do the crazy thing, but I did have so much fear at the same time. But it was a question of what's going to happen, and it was not about feeling safe. It was about feel the fear and do it anyway.
Well, with some tutors there, you don't feel safe. I remember my very first class when the tutor said, and you are going to connect, tell me their age, their sex, what they did in life, their name, blah, 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 gave a big shopping list. And then at the end, you're going to close. And in my head, I went, what is close? And then I started looking for a window to climb out because there was only one door in. And I thought, I've got to get out of here because I think I'm a fraud. Why am I here? I don't know all this stuff. But I'd gone directly from nothing to a intermediate class. I'd skipped where they learn all the basics. So I make sure I teach everyone the basics now as well, no matter what level you are, because no one will put their hand up and say, oh, I don't know what close is, or I don't know what grounding is, or I don't know what protection is, or because there's a lot of raw talent out there that are just fabulous. Everyone is psychic, everyone is gifted, and everyone does it their way, and you don't clone someone else. And when I teach someone, I teach them to develop what they have, not become someone else. And the Arthur Finlay College is very much a baptism by fire with some tutors, but it gets you out of your own way. It gets you propelled forward quickly.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for sharing. We're heading towards an end for this panel because there's a recorded talk starting in a few minutes. By the way, it's Nikki's talk. She apologizes for having to leave quite abruptly, but she had other duties. So her talk is about the soul compass and finding the soul compass. Go and listen to that. Thank you very much for being here, ladies. Does anyone want to add anything in particular? There is still a few minutes. So, but I
just thank you very much for doing this, Asaya, and making it so available to everyone and being so wonderful. And what a huge job, and you've done brilliantly.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm so happy to be showcasing so many amazing people like you. It's like I really want OTALOCO to become somewhere where we can discuss cards and our love of cards and the way we work more than just lecturing people about the meaning of cards, because there's many conferences on tarot or on oracle decks where you can literally learn stuff. But I also wanted the attendees here to have a sneak peek at what is a reader's life and how they became who they are, how they learn the things, how they dare to go live on the internet, or how they flew all across the world to go to the Arthur Finlay College, which, by the way, for people who don't know, is in London. And again, Katie comes from Australia. So yeah, big trip and big jump in the trusting jump kind of again. So yeah, so many amazing things that I think it's interesting for people to get to know. You as also the amazing humans that you are. So thank you very much for sharing in this less formal way. I think none of your talks have actually gone live for now. So there's so much juicy stuff. So we have Jackie is, what was the conversation about? Sorry, there's 21 of you, I get confused.
So my conversation is how tarot has influenced my life and how it's been with me throughout my life.
And I love that because there's I remember now, there's so many turns in the road.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying more, but there's a lot to, it's me being a story lover. I loved having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Then we have Pia's conversation is actually not a conversation. Pia turned out on her own facing camera, which is very, very daring, not obvious for everyone. And talked about how the dreams and the tarot intermingled in her life and how she dared to dream and to plunge into this world, which again was not a given for her. You know, you didn't have any prior ancestors or experience, just the love and the drive and the dreaming. And it's a beautiful talk. I was literally moved to tears. So thank you very much for sharing that one. And Jill also faced the camera on her own, very daringly, and told us everything about what did you tell us about? Because I'm sorry, I listened
Bringing
to
the
all of your
magic of your
Oh yes,
bringing the
yes.
magic of your oracle card deck to life.
Yes, actually. So she goes also into explaining how, like I was saying previously, we all have a deck and we all can create a deck. I think Nick was saying yesterday that there's a very famous quote that says, everyone has a book. And he insists that we all have a deck as well. And listening to Jill's talk might help you to bring this deck to life. Of course, Katie is not going to talk much about herself, because she's doing live readings later on today. So if you want that, just join us in a couple of hours. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here with me. I'm going to hit the go offline button, but you don't have to leave. We can debrief this one. Sorry, I'm just, being very honest here. So lots of love. Thank you to the attendees for watching us. There's a third live panel tomorrow.
Thank you.
Which I'm not going to tell you what time it is because it depends on your time zone. And this Congress has been a time zone hell for me, because we have a time span of 16 hours between our speakers, from GMT -8 to GMT +8. So I've been kind of pulling my hair to try and figure out how everything and everyone could be there. But you will find everything on the schedule page at the time where it will come live at your place, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much. I will talk to you all soon. Bye for now.